Call the meeting of the Manitowoc Public School District to order, and we will start with our Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, Carrie, if you're here, you could help me with that, because we're all talking at a different time there, but that's how it goes when you're virtual.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I will ask our board secretary today, Pearl.
Lisa Johnston.
Here.
Dave Nichols.
Here.
Richard Nitch.
Here.
Meredith Sauer.
Here.
Catherine Chalou. Carrie Trask.
Here.
And Kathy Willis.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, and the next item is our minutes from our February 23rd meeting. And I would entertain a motion and a second to approve those minutes.
I move we accept the minutes as sent out.
I'll
As
second the
presented.
motion.
Yeah.
Any further discussion, additions, or corrections to those minutes? If not, all in favor say aye.
All right.
Opposed? Okay, they are accepted. And I have no communications. In fact, I suspect all of us have had a significantly reduced amount of communications in the last couple of weeks. I hope that's the case. And the next item is public input. There isn't anybody here, but I'll give my two comrades here a chance because they could do public input, speaking as a member of the public. Anybody want to do public input? Lori, Mark, second, third, your chance. All right, I gave you a chance. Public input is closed.
Okay.
Now we will move on to our school showcase, and that's Wilson and Corey and Anna, I believe, are here. Correct? It's
Yes,
all
please.
yours. There
Awesome.
you go.
Well, thanks for having us. We're excited to be here. My name is Corey Erlinson, principal at Wilson Middle School.
I'm Anna Beatty, the associate principal over at Wilson Middle School.
And we're excited to be here today to share with you some of the good things that are going on at Wilson Middle School this year. This is kind of our annual visit to not only celebrate where we've been, but also to tell you about where we're headed and what we're excited about in terms of our goals and our future as well. So I want to start by sharing with you the heart and the core of our work, which is everything we do is rooted in our core values and in our mission and our vision. And so about 6 years ago, we developed just three little words that typify who we are and that ground us in what we do. And that's relationships, engagement, and growth. And relationships really just refers to the way we treat each other and deal with each other as adults, the way that we teach kids to work with one another, and the way that our adults and our kids work together as well. So that really creates the context and the foundation for students to engage in learning. And so engagement is really a key element of our core values as well. And all of that with the goal of leading to growth. And that we want to see growth in ourselves, growth in our students, and growth in our entire school on a daily basis. So that's our core values. If things that we want to do or activities that are ideas that we have don't align with those core values, we don't do them. Those really frame who we are and what we're here to do. We also have established a mission, and our mission is learning for all, and that's everybody. I think the key shift and the key kind of distinction in learning for all is that for a long time, public education was about teaching to all. And we are in the midst of a major shift, and we're excited to be a part of it because it's a good shift. But we have established that instead of teaching to all, we are learning for all. And that is, that's a heavy lift. That's a big job, and we're up for the challenge. All of this is aimed at creating students who leave our building as effective communicators, creative problem solvers, and engaged citizens. And that is our vision for every Warhawk that leaves us as 8th graders and heads off to Lincoln High School. So annually, we take time to figure out how we can be better at what we do. And not only celebrating the past year, but looking ahead to the future. And one of the things we've learned over the last couple of years, and with the help and support of the entire district and the Board of Education especially, we've been able to create structures that have enhanced collaboration at every level. And so we have teams working together to make us better every single day. Teams of teachers that get together, focused on moving us closer to our vision every single day. And without those teams, without those professional educators at the core, we wouldn't be able to do anything that we do. And so there's an annual process that we use to focus on what we should improve upon each year. And Anna's going to tell you about that.
So as Corey stated, our work is grounded in our mission, vision, and core values, and that extends to the work of our leadership team. Each year, we know it's important to work collaboratively as a team to identify our areas of growth. And this past summer, we pulled our leadership team together to do that work. And we started by digging into a variety of data sets. We identified the areas of celebration. We identified areas where we need to continue to grow. And in the end, we set a student learning goal for Wilson. During our data dig, our teams identified a variety of areas of growth that included closing gaps between our white students without disabilities and all other subgroups, improving student achievement in language arts, and improving student achievement in math. Our teams decided rather than focusing in on one academic area, they wanted to focus in on getting better at their collaborative efforts within their teams. They knew that by focusing in on getting better at what they do within their team, they would improve their instructional practices and positively impact students' learning across the board. That said, as our teams improve their instructional practices through their collaborative efforts, our school would like to see 80% of our students here at Wilson achieve proficiency in those identified power standards in all core subject areas during quarters 3 and 4 as measured by the team's common assessments. Corey's going to take some time to talk more about our content teams.
So when our leadership team came together and had some really challenging and important conversations about what was holding us back from that benchmark, and really that goal that we just looked at in the last slide, simply stated, is most of our students learning most of the things that we put in front of them over the course of each school year. So if we say this is important, then we want to make sure that everybody gets there. And so we said, what's holding us back? What gets in the way? And we came up with a lot of things that could use improvement. Some of them fell into the category of structure. So we talked about what is it that we need, how do we need to align and organize our teams so that these things could be effectively addressing student learning. And one of them was to establish our teams into content teams, where it would be 2 teachers who teach exactly the same content working together to develop the curriculum, to develop the assessments, and to look at the student work together. Additionally, we have house teams, and those are teams made up of teachers who all teach the same students. And those teachers will be focusing more on the social, emotional, and behavioral needs of our students. Those 2 structures combined created sort of this grid or safety net where students couldn't fall through the cracks academically or behaviorally. The other thing that we identified that we needed more of was just more protocols. We needed more specific ways of interacting with each other so that we were focused on the goal at hand. So for instance, when teams met, they needed to use agendas. Even if it felt unnatural and clunky at first, we needed to use those agendas to guide our work until it became second nature to us. We're still working on that. Power standards being those essential things that every student has to learn before they can move on to the next grade level. Establishing those and becoming really clear on what they are and why they're important was essential. We also needed to come up with common assessments. So assessments or tests or some sort of assessment of learning that all students had regardless of teacher, and a rubric that would measure their success regardless of who their teacher was, to create those common expectations. And then finally, we need to be able to come up with a protocol or practice to look at the student work and their success or lack thereof, and then to determine the next step. So did a student learn it or did they not yet learn it? And what will we do in response to that? These are things that maybe sound common sense as we hear them and think about them, but they require protocols and practice, practice, practice until we get good at them and see the results that we're looking for. So we've had multiple teams do really great things with this, and we want you to hear from them now. So the first team story that I want to share with you is our 6th grade math team. Our 6th grade math team was very dedicated to being a team and to practicing those protocols that we had set out to practice with our leadership team this summer. One of the things they learned is that they really needed to trust one another, and that in that trust, they could start to do something that's really kind of uncommon in public ed, which is to start sharing students across the classroom to meet their specific needs. So we're going to hear the story from our 6th grade math team at this time.
Hi, I'm Chris Osprung, and I'm part of the 6th grade math and science team here at Wilson. And today we're going to be talking about our Plc process. So our process began with Washington, and we collaborated on power standards for both math and science to help us determine what we want students to learn and know. We also talked about math practices to help students create an identity of their own for their math. Then throughout the year, our Wilson team has met daily to create and or tweak lessons for the various blended and virtual teaching models that we've had. Throughout, we've been able to maintain our learning targets and success criteria. We also talked about how we know that students got it by doing check for understandings in math and driving questions in science. And this gave us quick formative assessments of our student learning. So now Doug will talk a little bit more about those assessments.
Right, so I'm Doug Mitke, and our format for teaching this year has been, we're doing a lot of the work together with the students. So because of that, we wanted to know how they grasp each lesson and the basic understanding. So like Chris said, we have check for understanding problems, which are the end of each lesson. And then based on how students did on those check for understanding problems, we decide as or whether we need to work on those skills more. And then each week, when we were getting ready for our Fridays, we would decide what topics we needed to cover again. And then we also, one group that was going to be an enrichment group. So then on Fridays, that was what we worked on.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah.
I'm Leanne Hildebrand. I'm the special educator on this PLC 6th grade math and science team. So after we chose our topics that we needed to teach, we developed a form so that students could self-select what they felt they needed most that week to work on. So on this particular week, we had ratios, like finding out the ratio of rodent hair is acceptable in a chocolate bar, to mixed fraction operations, to portion webs, to an enrichment that involved the Fibonacci sequence. So we felt that students self-selecting their intervention or enrichment would help increase their motivation and engagement. Next is Taylor.
Hi there, I'm Taylor Winch, also teach 6th grade math and science here at Wilson. So students would then self-select what group they felt like they could use the most growth in. From there, we gave them a Google Meet code, and that way, us as teachers had a mix of students from different classes. So they attended the group that they felt where they needed the most growth. We would walk them through mini lessons and problems together. And then as a final wrap up, we used the last 5 minutes of our Google Meets to report back in the form of a Jamboard what they took from the lesson. So kind of that self-reflecting, what did I learn that was new, what was interesting to me, what was my takeaway, that we then, with our own classes, could follow up on the next week. So that has been our process this year.
So what you heard from that team was a high degree of trust that was built over time when you can share your students with another teacher. That takes a lot of trust. Opening up your own practice to say, yeah, my students need a little bit more of this, and I'm going to trust my colleague to do that. Another thing you might have noticed there is that we had a special educator embedded in that team. And so they're all seen as equals and treated as equals on that team in terms of educating the students in the classroom. So we really have this great team component. And they were some of our trailblazers who came and asked for permission. Hey, can we mess around with Fridays? Can we try something new and share our students? I said, absolutely, let's see how it goes. And it's really been great. Another team whose story we want to share with you is our 7th grade ELA team. Our 7th grade ELA team has worked together for a long time. They have some specialists embedded with it in terms of our reading specialists. And essentially what happened was they gave an assessment on summarizing, which is very challenging for students, and the students bombed the assessment. And so we want to look at the power of having a team collaborating together when things don't go according to plan and learning doesn't happen the way that it needs to.
So the 7th grade ELA team at Wilson was assessing students on their ability to summarize nonfiction texts. And after our first assessment recently, we found that between 30 and 40% only of our students were hitting proficiency. And that was a huge challenge, probably too much for a single language arts teacher like myself. I really needed to rely on some of the specialists in the room and the other ELA teacher here at Wilson to help my students. And Kirsten's going to talk a little bit about how the specialists contributed to that collaboration.
Yeah, so with Ben and Sarah working together, our ELA content teachers, they also brought in me as one of our reading specialists and our EL teacher and our other reading specialists, and we all collaborated around the idea of how we could intervene for students regarding this summarizing skill that they were struggling with. And we each ran our groups, and we used common language, we used similar targets, we used similar resources, and we really took a look at the results after the students took the test again, or took the assessment again. And we found that many students who received an intervention from either their classroom teacher or a specialist went up significantly in their work after they took the assessment the second time. But we also noticed that students that I worked with in my intervention did not go up as much as my colleagues and my other specialist peers. So we honed in even further to identify where were the areas that I taught differently than my colleagues, and I was able to pinpoint an idea that I could use from one of my colleagues and bring that back to the table and help all of our students grow and be successful.
So one of the things you hear in that story as well is the story of teams built on vulnerability and the ability to say, I really wanted my students to learn this, but they just didn't. And your students did. Help me out. That's a big step. It's a big step for any adult professional, teachers who take pride in their craft to be able to kind of open their practice up and say, hey, help me out. And what we saw is powerful results with this team when they were able to do that, and again, built on trust. So we'll continue our story of teams by looking now at a different type of team, our house teams.
So our house teams, as Corey had stated earlier, are a group of teachers, our core teachers that share the same students. And in the past, it may have been easy for us to get caught up in talking about student behaviors. However, we've learned that it's much more effective if we start to focus our efforts on engagement and building positive relationships with our students. And our house teams take time to do that. They take time during their team meetings to discuss additional strategies to support students' lagging skills. They take time to plan circle ups in order to problem solve as a whole class. They also start to collaboratively problem solve with individual students and take time to connect with families. These efforts allow our students to take ownership of their actions and empower them to be part of the problem solving process. Let's take a minute to hear from a couple of our 7th grade house members.
I'm Sarah Clement. 7th grade ELA teacher at Wilson.
And I'm Jason Kakich. I'm a EBD special education teacher at Wilson.
So we were confronted with a situation. There are 3 students in my advisory who, when in person, could be very disruptive and inappropriate. And they were taken away from other students' ability to be heard. And it didn't just stop in advisory. The pattern continued or worsened throughout the day. And to the point where other students sought me out to express their frustrations and concerns. So we had tried a whole bunch of different things. We had discussions of what it looks like to be a strong student in person and at home. We made anchor charts to record what we said it looked like and sounded like. And despite multiple redirections and revisiting these anchor charts and the expectations, we still weren't making any progress.
And seeing that both I and my para, Sue Schermetzler, were servicing EBD students in that 7th grade house, we noticed these behaviors throughout the day as well. So we decided to collaborate as a group between our SPED team and the 7th grade Orange House to collaborate on some consistent strategies, accommodations, and ideas that may help the students as well as the learning community and the teachers. So what did that look like? It took a collaborative effort in which we met during the 7th grade Orange House PLC time. We brainstormed on various accommodations and strategies to use in the classroom that would benefit all. And really the key is creating a consistent plan that all team members are using and implementing. And we're starting to see some of the benefits of that right now.
So, like Jason said, we've tried some of those approaches, and we're looking at working consistently with our students accountable and reinforcing those expectations. And we're noticing an increased awareness of behaviors among the students. And I'm really looking forward to our opportunity to have more time with the students in person so we can continue to build on these relationships and these understandings and their social skills.
You can see that our educators rely on each other's expertise to best support our students during these house team meetings. And as we take a look at our last section of tonight's presentation, you're going to start to see how the work of our house teams ties together the partnership between school and home. There's a lot of truth to the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child, and education has to be a partnership between our school and our students' families. And this stems from the work of our teams, especially those house teams, where they start to look at students' needs as the whole child. And those house teams not only collaborate with one another, but they also reach out to our parents and students' guardians. And at times when things get a little tougher and they get stuck, they also reach out to our student support team. And our student support team consists of Corey and myself, our school counselors, and our school psychologist. And our team takes a deeper look into our students and what additional supports and resources we have available that we can offer to those students and families. In addition, Corey and I have taken time to have attendance meetings this year. And these meetings are really just individualized time for each of our students. And the goal of these meetings is to determine what's getting in the way of a student attending school, and then creating a plan for that child to find success. Student voice during these meetings is crucial, because without them, we can't get to the root cause of what's causing the issue. So during these meetings, we've discovered that students might be struggling in a number of areas. They might be struggling with time management time management skills, organizational skills. They might be overwhelmed and just not know how to ask for help. We found that students were struggling with the virtual platform and needed some assistance and extra training on that. We found that students also needed some just additional academic support. For each of these kiddos, we take the time to create an individualized plan and share it with their teachers, and we share it with the family and the student. And in some cases, we've extended our efforts to WALT, which is our Wilson Afternoon Learning Time, which provides a quiet study area for students, and it also allowed students time to connect with their teachers for additional support. In addition, we've had a few students that have also been partnered up with some high schoolers as a tutoring program. And this not only helped our students find some academic success, but it also builds a positive relationship between our high school students and our middle school students. In addition, it provides an opportunity to empower our high schoolers to be a positive influence in another student's life. Through the work of our house teams, we're able to identify our students' individual needs that go beyond academics. From there, we can work to provide our students with the needed support to be successful. Our partnership between school and home continues with our parent engagement meetings, which Corey will talk about now.
So we've been holding parent engagement meetings at Wilson Middle School since way back before it was even a middle school. I think 6 years since I've been here, we've been having parent meetings that have averaged 3, 4, maybe even 5 parents at one time. And we just could never find the formula. How could we get parents to show up for these meetings? How could we create a better partnership and a better connection? And then all of a sudden COVID came along. And when COVID came along, there were a lot of questions and a lot of opinions and a lot of ideas, and we needed a forum. And so we started, instead of having a couple of parent engagement meetings a year, one each quarter, we said, let's have them monthly. Let's just have them a lot. And we focused on 2 things. We focused on a very accessible online format in which we made sure there was no way you could miss the memo that we were having a parent engagement meeting. And then 2, we created a structure that was all about 2-way communication. So we would start by sharing relevant information that was on people's minds, and then we would leave a good chunk of time at the end to hear back. We would ask specific questions, but then also allow for Q&A at the end to get that other direction of the 2-way communication. And our average attendance in our parent engagement meetings in this online format has been between 30 and 60 parents every single month that we meet. So it's been extremely positive. Parents come with hard questions. They come with supportive statements. They come with just some genuine curiosity, but they're coming. And I think we're finding that, or I think we've found that this format where you don't really need to leave home, you can click in maybe while you're getting dinner on the table. It allows people to be part of their kids' school without having to do any really extraordinary scheduling gymnastics. So it's worked really well. We've seen a great increase in our connection with parents, and we've gotten tons and tons of positive feedback because of that. We have just one parent that wanted to share a testimonial with you of her experience with that as well.
I just want to say how impressed I am with the improvement of parent engagement at Wilson this year. Last year, there was maybe 4 to 5 people attending the meetings, and Mr. Erlinson and Mrs. Beatty have opened it up to a Zoom this year, and there's 40 to 50 people attending. We get our questions answered, they share important information, and it's been really an improvement and an excellent way to get parents involved in middle school at Wilson.
So tonight's story of Wilson Middle School is really a story of teams. It's a story of ensuring that every student has their academic and social emotional needs met. And that as adults, we are so much better when we do it together than when we try to do it alone. So thanks for your time. And if you have any questions, we can take them now.
Anybody have any questions on the board for Corey?
Yep, I have a bunch. First of all, I am somewhat disappointed because I did my own homework in preparing for tonight's meeting with the showcase that was sent to us, and this one is quite different. I'm wondering why the changes, first of all, come to my mind from what I got to study previously and today, and versus what we have in front of us tonight.
You're talking about some of the slides that we changed, like the format and some of the bullets and things?
Yeah, there's several that are not included in tonight's presentation, but were included earlier today.
All I can say is as we were finishing up our final presentation, we were streamlining it, just making sure, doing our time checks and things like that to make sure we were within that time frame. So I'm sorry about that. Apologize if there's not the...
It threw me, I'll have to say that. So anyway, so with your goal of 80% proficiency for your students with the power standards, what is going to be done for the remaining 20%? What is your plan for that?
So the goal is when we identify those power standards, create the common assessments, the goal is to get really good at the data analysis. So we look at which students didn't hit proficiency, and then we have a system of interventions for those students to get them there. Ideally, when we're really good at this, we not only have sort of that first round of interventions, but we have second and third round of interventions, but we have to really narrow it down to what are the key things that every student has to know before they can move on to the next grade level, because we know that we can't do that with every single topic that's covered. So we really have to focus on what is the most essential. So the plan, is for interventions for all of those students. We've built a win time into our schedule now where we have teachers will have the availability or accessibility to get to their students at a less structured time where it's not core class time. So that's part of the plan.
Okay, so if you end the school year and you still have 20% left, are there plans possibly, I know you may not have them in place yet, but are there plans for the summer, maybe for some intervention to take place after the school year?
It's a great question. We're really excited at the middle school level to say that we're going to be offering a Bridge Academy this summer, which is academy that's offered to our middle schoolers for 3 weeks during the month of July. And during that, we're going to be offering sections of ELA, language arts, math, and there's going to be a section that focuses in on STEAM and leadership skills as well.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yep, I do have more. Sorry, Dave, but
that's all right.
I guess there's one thing that you mentioned that I am not aware of what it means, and I think it's education lingo, and some of us don't know all of those. So exactly what is a circle up?
A circle up is similar to what Washington had talked about. I believe it was last month. So it's a time where our teachers can gather their group of students together. They can use it for problem solving. They can use it for building relationships. So a circle up is basically a time where our teachers lead a conversation with their students that stems from a question or a prompt that the teacher gives them. So if they're struggling with interruptions in the classroom, one thing that they could say is they might start with, I've noticed that we're struggling with some disruptions during our class time. What do you think's going on? And kids can then start to share what they think is happening within the classroom. They might start to share how it makes them feel. And then as a team, they can start to problem solve together as a class to say, hey, can we try this to see if we can improve that and help to support each other so that we have a more cohesive classroom.
One of the things we see as a benefit from that as well is that there's a collective ownership of the classroom, and that it's not just teacher says and the student does, but that the students together determine this is our classroom culture, this is how we're going to roll as a class, this is what's important to us, and it makes those behavioral changes stick.
So does that extend then into the house, into their other classes too? Because the kids are still rotating within the house.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So our teachers always communicate with one another. So if they have a circle up and their advisory group comes up with a plan for their group, they share that out with the other teachers so that all teachers know what that plan is and that they can all help to encourage and reinforce those plans of those students in that class.
Great. I'm glad to hear that there's consistency and some accountability. I think those are very key elements in their schooling right now.
Definitely.
I guess that's it for me. I had more, but that was based on the other one. So
I actually had a couple of questions too, and actually both of them were in the same areas that Kathy brought up. One of them, the 80% students proficient in the core power standards. I was wondering, if you have information in regard to the baseline data, where are you starting? And did you do any midterm assessments to determine if you're making adequate progress towards that goal?
That's a great question. So baseline data has been, I missed the camera, sorry. Baseline data has been a little bit of a challenge over the last couple of years to have something that we'd say, this is what we hit every single year. So I would say that this is the year that we would like to have some baseline data that will definitely be COVID baseline data. Next year will probably be a little bit of a different baseline. But either way, the target of 80% is based on power standards that I would say probably are about 2, maybe 3 big standards per quarter per class. And so this the first semester really was focused on the process, making sure teachers were were comfortable with the data analysis process, so they know, here I have my data. We only hit 30 or 40%, like our ELA team said. So here's now what we're going to do to get closer to 80%. And then our goal is set on the end of the third and the end of the fourth quarters, measuring how close we are to 80%. If I'm being honest, I'm not sure how close we're going to be this year. I think it's just this is really establishing that baseline. If we find out that we regularly are hitting 60, then we know, okay, then that's the work we have cut out for us. But I'm excited to find out. This is the first year we've ever systematically built in that kind of a target across all of our core classes. And I think it's going to create some great results.
Okay, I'm glad you had that insight, because a goal is rather meaningless if you don't know where you're starting. I was also going to ask about the circle ups. So thank you for that explanation. I thought it was a good explanation. It sounds like a nice approach in working with kids. My final thing is, I think, it's bringing 40 to 50 parents together for a parent engagement is incredible, and I know how challenging it is to find a time, a place, and it's to draw that many parents. Are you going to continue the electronic meetings because of the success you've had?
Absolutely.
I think the question is just, do we offer both, or do we just continue to offer electronic? But for now, it'll be electronic. We've increased our newsletters from quarterly to weekly. So we're always sending out parent newsletters, and again, trying to give enough information so that if there are questions, they can show up and we can discuss those there. But I think electronic might be the way that we operate into the future.
It is. It's always nice to try something new, but it's also good to stick with what works.
Yeah.
And I guess we did have one more, you guys, based on the 80%. Is your plan then, when you come up with your final numbers on that 80%, to divide it out between 6th, 7th, and 8th grade? Because that can make a big difference too. So, is it 80% of 6th grade? Is it 80% of 7th? Or are you going to lump them all together? So I guess I would encourage more definitive data, and by having them each separated. So I'm assuming you mean each grade with each core standard. So yes,
within each course as well. Yeah, but yes. Appreciate that feedback.
Okay. I just think it'll say more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think so too.
Any other questions?
Yeah, good presentation.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Corey and Anna.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on to our committee reports. And the first committee on our agenda would be the Finance and Budget. Richard, that would be you.
All right, thank you, Dave.
Oh, yeah.
The Finance and Budget Committee met on March 9th. Our meeting was called to order at 2:00 in the afternoon. The first item on our agenda was the Cooper Ratch proposals. Angela and Mark, gave the committee a brief history of the Cooper Ratch Trust Fund. I know they come to us every year with proposals. The limit this year was 13,500. It was available for special building requests. A list of those requests that were brought to the Finance and Budget Committee should have been part of your board book background information. So you should have a list of requests that were presented. The Finance and Budget Committee did approve the list of requests, and I believe we're moving it to. Do we have to move to the board for approval?
Yeah, it'll be later in the agenda.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Another item on our agenda was a cash handling policy. The Manitowoc School District, is currently does not have a cash handling policy, and one was recommended. The policy puts in place cash handling procedures and, more importantly, safeguards, for the district. The policy, will be particularly meaningful in the handling of student activity funds, that are often collected at the building level. A copy of the policy should have been included in the board book background information. And the Finance and Budget Committee, approved that the policy be taken to the board for first reading tonight. Mark and Angela shared a little bit of information in regard to preliminary budget work for the 2021-22 school year. Mark shared some information in regard to enrollments, and he described for us a 20-year enrollment projection. It's a process that they use, to help, drive decisions, for the district. The district does anticipate continued movement towards declining enrollment, with a possible projected decline of as many as 120 students within the next 5 years. Angela, informed our committee that the building principals are beginning work on their building budgets. And then finally, it's I can't have a meeting without a referendum update. And Mark did share with us, that he has done presentations, it's both, it's in the schools and in the community. And it's his perception that the referendum has been well received, where he's given his presentations. So that is good to hear. He also informed us that he is working on a mailer that's going to be distributed to all households in the community. And I think, we saw that in our background information for tonight's meeting. Mark did comment, that the, as part of our referendum, we're going to be asking for 800,000 more than the past referendum. It's yet emphasizing the fact, that we should not see an increase, in our tax levy. So again, that was just an update on the referendum. And then the meeting was adjourned at 2:13 that afternoon. Dave, did you have anything you wanted to add, or Angela, did I miss anything?
No, that was good. And those two items will be brought forward later in the meeting for the board to vote on. So,
okay.
Any other questions for Richard? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion in a second to approve the minutes from the meeting.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes for the Finance Committee meeting.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Then we move to the Personnel Committee, and that would be Lisa.
Sure. The Personnel Committee meeting was on March 5th, and the first item that we had talked about was our revising of Board Policy 1240, which is the evaluation of the superintendent. So the Personnel Committee has been tasked with that project of revising that. We've been doing that for about the past 2 months, and with the help of Richard Nitsch, which I'd like to say thank you very much, Dick, for helping us with that language. We have come to a proposal we are bringing to the whole board that we will be doing for a first read. These have been ongoing discussions that the board has had with, what are our expectations for that policy? We wanted to make the process more formal, include dates, and have expectations. And I guess it all came down to making things a little more accountable for everybody. So that was the whole idea on formulating this revised 1240 policy. And again, we will be looking at the first read this evening. So, and I hope everyone had a chance to possibly look at this before this evening. The second item that we talked about were staff vaccinations. And I would like to say Mark did an excellent job arranging staff vaccinations for anyone that wanted to be vaccinated through Holy Family Memorial. And they did this last Thursday and Saturday. So anyone who wanted a vaccine was able to get their first vaccine. So as a board member, I would really like to thank Holy Family Memorial for accommodating MPSD. So a big thank you to them, and also Mark for arranging it. The second item we talked about was the Employee Assistance Program, and Joyce had given us an update on that. And what that is it is offered to all staff members. They can receive up to 6 free confidential counseling sessions, and that is offered through Aurora. What that is just to kind of help the staff deal with maybe some issues that have come up this past year. It's been very difficult for a lot of us. So they are able to go talk to a professional and get some counseling if they need to. So those services are being made available to our staff if they wish to pursue them. The last thing that we discussed was the 2021-2022 school calendar, which they are looking at drafting. And what they did, the principals from all the schools are getting together to discuss what does the start of the school year going to look like, how to strategically place staff development days, when to conduct the parent-teacher conferences, and when possibly they will schedule spring break for next year. So discussions are ongoing with the school calendar, so they are working on that. So that draft is in process. So are there any other questions?
I just want to make one comment. I don't know if everybody read the committee report, but we did meet with Attorney Burns in regards to that policy on evaluation and got his insights. So it's always nice to have the blessing of an attorney. It's when you're looking at a policy.
Yes, thanks for bringing that up, Dick. We met with Attorney Burns on February 23rd.
I was also kind of wondering when you're discussing the calendar, and maybe this is a question for Mark, is there any discussion at all about doing virtual days in lieu of snow days, so we don't run into calendar complications, because of weather?
Yeah, so if you recall, Mr. Nitch, earlier in this year, we have a board of policy that allows us to count virtual instruction as school hours. So our plan currently, we're hoping that obviously on March 9th that we're not going to have any more inclement weather days, but our plan currently is if we can notify people in advance and let them know to take their things home, that we'll plan that virtual day. And I think we'll move that forward. Again, I think we'll probably keep a weather emergency day in the calendar just in case. But if we don't have to use it, we typically add it to the end of the week and we give them a 3-day weekend instead of 4. But yes, the goal would be to not disrupt instruction. And if I can't go anywhere, I probably could be able to learn online during the school year. So that would be definitely a goal. And we'll continue to look at those options.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, and Mark, I really want to thank you too, just like Lisa did, for arranging that with Holy Family for the immunizations. And, I've heard even just this week about other states where their teachers are having issues or it's being done by lottery. So the fact that you made that arrangement with Holy Families to get, 300 plus or whatever we have getting those immunizations is really great. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
And thank you,
yeah.
Holy Family.
I would agree. I was excited to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Our nurse, Jenny Hintz, did an outstanding job. You know, sometimes it's the phone calls that I can make, and then there's a lot of people, obviously, behind the scenes that are helping do surveys and get data points, and so you know, I appreciate that. But there's other people besides me, so we definitely worked as a team.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the Personnel Committee meeting.
I'll move we approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, thank you for those reports. And we will get back with a couple of items later from the committee, so. We'll then move on to the report of the superintendent, and the first two items will be Angela, our business manager. So Angela, it's your turn.
Okay, thank you. First of all, we have the accounts payable and the payroll for approval for the month of February. Accounts payable information was posted in board book, and total is $4,426,844.01 for accounts payable. And payroll for the month was $2,019,062.37. So
I did have a question about that. Angela, why do we have 10 voided checks, 8 of them being personal?
I think, you know, and I could get back to you on the details of each one if you'd like, but a lot of what we've seen, and this was on last month's payroll vouchers as well, is with sometimes canceled activities that we have or plans that change, especially with COVID. We have to refund and void out checks. And a lot of times what school districts will run into as well is that sometimes an official will be assigned for a game, and then a different official has to step in if someone gets sick. You know, I don't think that would speak to all of them, but that is often what happens. So I'm happy to provide more information if you'd like, but that's typically what happens with the voided checks.
Okay, and then do we incur fees for that then with each voided check?
I don't believe we do, but I can double check.
Okay, thank you. I just wondered.
You're welcome. Yeah, no, great question. Thank you.
Any other questions on the payment of vouchers? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion and a second to approve the report.
I would make a motion to approve the report. Well, can't talk today.
Whatever. Yeah, we know what you meant.
Just a minute. Okay, that's
We
good.
got it, yeah. Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, any further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. And then Angela has the monthly financial report for us on board book?
Yes.
Most of it, at least?
Yes. We had just, when I was pulling the file tonight, just to double check things, I noticed that there was a slight oversight, and we have the full balance sheets and the summary of the expenditures and revenues, but some of the breakouts of the fund revenues and expenditures are missing. So I'll be sure to answer some of Kathy's questions and forward those on tomorrow. You know, in what you were provided for the month, we had some local taxes come in, always January, February time. We received that as main revenues. Some special education categorical aid came in, equalization aid and AGR funding. So that's all very, very typical funding. Our funding kind of trickles in throughout the year. So, you know, those were kind of highlights of the last month's financials. And then what you were able to see with the Fund 50 revenues and expenditures, we just moved to trying to show just some graphics along with it. And I can just note, I wanted to mention with Fund 50 with food service, you know, all the students are eating for free. That's federally funded. And we just received word that that's going to continue through September 30th. So when you notice on that report, our federal funds that we received are substantially higher, or just a little bit higher compared to previous years, and that's because that's where the aid is coming from. And then, yeah, so those are the main highlights I wanted to mention. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Angela then? Well, good. All right, thank you. Then we will move on to the personnel report, and that is Joyce.
All right, thank you. Thank you. See, the personnel report should have been included in board book. I guess I will open it up for any questions or comments.
If not, we just need a motion and a second to approve the report.
I do have
I
one.
move-
Of course,
Go
I
ahead,
do. I'm sorry, Meredith, but I'm assuming I know the answer, but I just want to make sure. Stephanie Henschel is now varsity head coach, which we just approved in the last meeting, hers as assistant coach. So is Jacques Rubawidi stepping down? Is she taking over? What's going on with that one?
Correct.
Okay, Jacques, Mr. V is stepping down. Okay, so we should anticipate then down the road that we'll have another assistant coach to approve. Okay, just wanted to make sure I had that right. So thank you.
Meredith, did you have a question?
No, I'm just going to move that we accept. The
Oh,
report.
that's even better. I like that. That's a good choice.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, Joyce. And then we'll move on to the items that our superintendent presents to us. Mark, you're up. And I believe the first is the report.
Yeah, so first question would be if there's any questions or clarifications on the superintendent director's report.
Mark, can you talk a little bit about the groups that you have been talking to regarding the referendum, just so that we have an idea of, folks we may need to reinforce or folks that we may need to talk to that may not have been on your list?
Sure. So the lots of focuses. The first focus that I just finished up last week was our staff meeting group. So I met with every staff meeting virtually and communicated a presentation. In addition to those, then I have done 4 parent groups. I believe I'm doing Wilson's parent group tomorrow night. So again, all virtually, talking to the parents. I was at Lincoln, I was at Franklin, and now Wilson. In addition to that, then I'm also members of several other agencies within our system. And so I have an opportunity to have conversations, or I will be having conversations with boards that I serve on, and then conversations with individual groups that have questions or are, particularly going there. So, for example, boards that I serve on would be Progress Lakeshore, Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, Capital Civic Center, and the Noon Rotary. So all of those will get communications, updates, and regular feedback in regards to that. I met yesterday, I believe, or the day before with Representative Tittle. And so I reach out to the individuals. So I try to reach out to our local legislatures and people who are governmental influence and communicate the need for that. And again, I think so far they've been very well received.
Awesome. Thank you.
Is there any chance to talk to the League of Women Voters? I know you're not done. There's a few weeks left, but they tend to have a fair amount of influence, I think. But
yeah, definitely open to. And one of the things I've always articulated in groups that I've been meeting, if there's another group or somebody who you want me to be communicating with, I definitely will reach out to that. It's a good idea, Carrie. I do have a contact for the League of Women's Voters. I'll reach out to that individual that I know and see if they have a meeting coming up or if there's anything to do. And, I would tell you that in the non-COVID era, I know that there would be communication for board elections and referendum, but I haven't seen that from the League of Women's Voters. They've definitely had some things differently. So I'll reach out to them and see if there's some opportunities for feedback there.
yeah, I noticed there's a candidates forum, and candidates forum is for candidates, I guess, but there's not a kind of a comparable opportunity for an issue forum in a sense. And I don't know really who's running the candidates forum, but if someone there could just say something, not necessarily make an argument, but just say something that, you know, I still bump into people who say, well, what referendum?
Right.
And it should be in the newspaper too, but you know, I mean, we don't want to start doing a critique of the newspaper. And I don't know if I can say this or not, since this is political, but the Manitowoc County Democratic Party is sending out postcards and has a pretty long list of people who picked up signs in the last federal election, last federal state election, that will be getting notice, and everybody affiliated with that side of the political system is very strongly in favor of a yes on the vote on the referendum. So,
Mark, do you know when the mailers will go out? As somebody who's been voting absentee recently, I want to, you know, the absentee ballots, I think, come on March 16th or 17th. So I guess I would want those flyers in folks' hands if they're voting in that manner.
Yeah, so the flyers, I believe, are at the post office as we speak. And the question will be how quickly the post office gets it into our mailboxes. But we're hoping that Thursday, people will begin to see those in their mailbox.
Perfect.
yeah, I thought the mailer looked really good. I mean, it's nice and professional, and honestly clarifies everything that needs to be clarified.
I was also going to comment on that. I thought you got a lot of information on 2 pages.
Try to get every penny we can. Yeah. Any other questions on the report, Director, Superintendent report?
Can I ask you a question, Mark? I don't know if you have this discussion with legislators, or maybe I should know this. You know, I know that, you know, we've been talking about categorical reimbursement for special education. You know, has that already gone up, or is that something we're looking at as a possibility?
Yeah, so in the governor's budget for the past 2 years, there's been, or past 2 biennium budgets, this first one and the second one, there's been an increase in aid that has been I guess in the original budget to give to school districts for special education. And so for the board and our general public who's interested, special education is not funded at 100%. Generally, it's funded at more like 62% or so. So what that means is that we have what we call a categorical transfer from Fund 10 to the Special Education Fund, Fund 27. And you must meet the requirements of whatever the student is needing. And the cost of that, based on the IEP, doesn't matter. So when the legislatures or the governor's bill would provide more than 63% to school districts to help offset the cost of special education, that would mean we would have less transfer into Fund 10 and be able to use that money for the things that we need to expend. But we do know that the process is that it goes to through a legislative process of which individuals, our elected officials make some adjustments or recommendations, or they put that through and then they send it back to the governor, and he has the ability obviously to veto things or make changes to it through a line item. But we have not been, school districts across the state have not been made whole in special education as we were promised years ago. And that's an expense that, as Manitowoc has, 16% of our population is in special education, has identifications of that. those costs are greater than school districts that have 9 or 10 because we're still spending from Fund 10 to make that happen. So again, I've articulated to our legislators, and when we spoke to them a week and a half ago, that if they want to help all school districts and all kids, increasing the amount of revenue that they give to school districts for special education funding will do that, because it will reduce the amount of money we have to put in Fund 10 or move from Fund 10. It will continue to provide the same opportunities for those students who have IEPs across the state. So hopefully that'll stay in the package.
Mark, it's and I think I brought this up to you before. It's my understanding is that there's also a requirement that a school district from one year to the next cannot spend less on special education than they did the year before. It's called maintenance of effort. So if we get more funds in special ed, can we waive that maintenance of effort requirement?
So the idea would be that your expenditure would be the same, just the transfer would be different. So I'll give you a general idea. Let's use $10,000 as in the budget. Mark Holzman, through his IEP, cost $10,000. The state will reimburse Manitowoc Public School District at $6,000. So now the Manitowoc Public School District takes $4,000 from Fund 10 and shifts it into Fund 27 to pay the $10,000, right? If the state pays 70%, the maintenance of effort is still $10,000, but the Manitowoc Public School District only has to shift $3,000 to that, make that whole, hence a $1,000 gain in our Fund 10 model. I mean, finances in public schools are so complicated. But yes, there is a maintenance of effort. So we have to continue to maintain the special ed. You can't cut that, so you can use it in other areas. That's basically why they have maintenance of effort.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, thank you, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Can I put this into perspective about getting the increase on this special education reimbursement? Right now, we're sitting at 26%. It's proposed that we get that to 60%. If we get that to 60%, that will be $3 million per year to the MPSD. So that $3 million, I mean, when you look at that, okay, if we got that from the state, there's the possibility we wouldn't have to be running referendums. So that's a perspective of it. So it's just vitally important that we talk to our legislators, we get this special education increase, and then we may not have to go down these financial roads again with these referendums. So that's just my comment.
Okay.
And speaking of money, are we gonna benefit soon and directly from the Biden big bill that just passed, or is just passing?
I would articulate this. I had this question from the legislatures. Soon and quickly, the answer will be no, because the money goes to the state. And then right now, if you know that our legislators are probably having some discussion over who gets to say how the money gets distributed to the schools. And there will be a legislative fiscal bureau that says what schools get it. It's just public schools, public and private, based on title. So it will be a little bit of time. The example I would give you is this: the CARES $2 that was allocated in December, that money is not available yet to the Manitowoc Public School District. So I mean, we're excited about the possibility, but it's going to take some time. And I would also tell you that the money is going to be earmarked likely with, you must spend it on, and here's the categories that you can, and it's a reimbursement. So first you spend it, then we reimburse you. It's good. I mean, obviously we're never, but it's going to take some time. So I'll lead into the referendum update just to give you some feedback, and if you have questions on that, we can keep going. Just wanted to reiterate to the board that Thursday at 6:30 is our first public communication for a referendum virtually. What I'm going to do really quickly, just to show you, is I'm going to present my screen because I want everybody to be able to see where you can see that on the website. So I'm on the Manitowoc Public School District website underneath the referendum slate here. And what you'll see is just some different information or updates or focus and the videos. But on here, you can see that there are the fact sheet mailer, the referendum slideshow, and that information. If you go to the referendum Q&A, which is just this little link here, and it's circling here for a second, you'll see that there are links for the March 11th, March 16th, and March 24th presentation. And there's an opportunity, if people want to in advance, submit a question. People will have the opportunity to submit a question during the meeting, but if maybe you don't have the same access or you're not comfortable, or if you want to do something, we'll do that. We'll then use that information to then create a written question and answer, the things that we see regularly that we'll keep updating, and then we'll answer those questions in the next presentation because we heard it 2 or 3 times in the first one. So Lori's going to help me monitor that. And again, there will be, the way it works is that I'll be presenting in a video like this. We'll transfer it to YouTube, and then when you click on that, you're actually go to the district's YouTube page, and then you can chat in there and ask questions, and then Lori will help me feed the questions through that process. So one thing that I think we should probably acknowledge, and we don't have to raise hands here, but we definitely need to know, is that the state is pretty specific about a quorum. And even if it's not a conversation quorum, we probably should get an idea if we're going to have a quorum at any of these events. So if you plan on just attending virtually and not even commenting, there still would be an opportunity via your chat in the box. So it's just something like in the past, if you recall, it would be like graduation. It would be like we used to have the Quarter Century Club Live. It would be like, I don't know, if we had a Christmas gathering. The language just says there's going to be something, there's no board business being conducted. We're not, doing anything from the board perspective, but 5 people or more might be there. So, other questions about the 11th, 16th, 24th? Kathy has connected with me, and we'll connect again about some opportunities for board members to either welcome folks or close or communicate within that process. So if you have interest in doing one of those at any of those, let me know, and we can kind of talk through what a script might be and what your role is if you want to do that. And again, if you have interest in attending, that's fine. You don't, obviously don't have to, but we're probably better safe than sorry if you're going to attend on the 11th, that we post that. And we would need to do that within 24 hours. So tomorrow would be a good idea. Okay. Any other questions regarding, talked a little bit about it before, the flyers, but referendum. Okay. Yeah, so this last piece here for me real quickly. Monday was our first day back for all of our students. I had the opportunity to stop in at Franklin Elementary School just to communicate with a couple of things and witnessed a lot of smiley kids. And I think our staff was doing an outstanding job. I feel real good about how, the buildings are in place. I went for a run before the board meeting tonight and circled by Ron Rubik Field and saw about 80 kids practicing football and lots of smiley faces. And the volleyball team waved to me as they were going somewhere, and the cross-country team is out. And so those things are going on. We continue to monitor and make sure we're doing all we can with the protocols and wearing masks. But, we're starting to see some things that our students and staff and probably community are enjoying. And again, the day 2, again, I think we're excited about what's going on. We'll continue to take a look at what our future looks like and if we need to make some adjustments. But the 40 and 50 degree March 9th, 10th, and 11th does not hurt students when they're coming back and smiling and our staff as well. So that's been really great. We also will remind parents that we did make that Friday before spring break just an emergency day. We can't really call it a weather day in light of the fact that we might have some folks who have some symptoms after the second COVID shot. But again, we're seeing some great results. So we'll move that day in April and won't lose a student day with that. So again, I feel like we are off to a great start. There was lots of communications. I had an opportunity to talk on the radio on Monday, and TV5 was here on Monday, and the newspaper had a really nice article about us returning back. If you haven't seen that, I think it even went to the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel and was posted there as well. So getting some positive communication about our return to school. And again, I think our staff is doing a great job of trying to support the students in the best way that they can. That's my report.
That's good.
All right. Then we will move on to new business. And now we will have a couple items that are going to be brought forward. The first one is the Cooper Arch funds, which was from the Finance and Budget Committee. I'll open that up if anybody has any discussion, any questions on what that is. You already have it approved by the finance, so it's just a matter of either discussing it or voting on it. There's no questions.
I would move we approve.
Yeah, we already got that. When it comes up,
Wow.
Committee. So
All right.
I try really hard, Dave, to move
You want to
things
get credit
along.
for that, I know, but if nothing else, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then it's the first read of the policy on cash handling and deposits. Is there any questions on that? That is a new policy. That's why it's the first read. If not, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, we moved at those. And then there's from the Personnel Committee is the policy 1340, and that would be a first read. I just have a couple questions for you. I wasn't at the meeting. That's actually almost a new policy, even though it's the same number, because pretty much the language that was in the old one has been thrown out, right?
Oh, no, a lot of the language isn't thrown out at all.
Well, it looks to me, I'm looking at the old policy and the new one, and it's complete. There's a lot of the same words, Carrie, but they're
well, same goals, same. Yeah, I think the process has been changed.
Right, which is really what the policy is about. So.
Well, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of the biggest shifts are really taking the time to do some mid-year conversations to make sure that we're all on the same page, and then more of a formalized evaluation towards the end of the academic year. And we did have a good conversation about that, and I'm not trying to hijack your conversation, Lisa, but I think we had some good focused conversation on if that was the best model given the state statute of needing to be able to give notice if we were headed down that path at all in January. So I think, but we felt comfortable with it.
And I would comment, that the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, it's, did a presentation, and, it's many of the procedures that we're putting in place are recommendations, coming from them.
Yeah, I think oh, sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
And a lot of the things that are in this new policy or in this revised policy, we talked about as a whole board about 2.5 months ago. So if you recall that conversation, I recall it very well. And, a lot of those items that we put in there, we all discussed and we all agreed. And that's why we put that together the way that we did. So.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this is just structure for the board, because again, one of my concerns all along has been to not reinvent the wheel or try to figure out what that wheel is every single year, that from now forward, we have a real structured plan in doing evaluations. So I think that would ease the mind of everyone on the board or our superintendent, that we all know what's expected and what's coming and when.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree. I mean, it seems very well organized and very, very, predictable, except there's quite a few mays in there, such as such methods may include, superintendent's own self-analysis down through, and since I haven't been on the board and I wasn't on any of these earlier discussions that happened a few months ago, or ever been involved in an evaluation, how inclusive is that list?
Well, please correct me if I'm wrong, that I'm stepping in here, but the attorney, I believe, is the one who actually suggested putting in the mays because it allowed for some flexibility from the board. So it wasn't quite as stringent as if we included the may in there.
Okay.
So,
And is there any kind of loophole? Oh, I'm sorry. Cool.
No, Carrie, and just to address that, and Lisa had mentioned that this had been discussed previously, although you weren't a member of the board at the time.
Yeah.
At that time, some of the discussion would have included those absolute words that, I wasn't supportive of. When you put too many shalls in there, then you really restrict yourself.
Yes, you do.
A little bit of ability to work a little different. We don't know what our situation will be at the time, what position we'll be in. I actually am more supportive with the mays in than I would have been if the shalls had stayed in there.
Okay.
So that's where, I think that's a good part.
But even though the mays really loosen it up.
Yeah.
That also, I mean, I think this is a pretty good list of things that we can apply, 1 through 5.
Right.
But does the maze loosen it up to the point where somebody could say, well, I also want to do this? Is there opportunity for, and I'm not advocating an opportunity for additional methodology, but does the may permit that to happen?
Well, I guess my response to that, or my thought would be, that would still have to be something that was approved by all members of the board as a majority.
Okay.
So I don't see that there's any potential issue with that, because we would all have to agree. We, meaning anyone on the board at that time.
Right.
Yeah, I don't see any method of one individually driving it and steering it and being able to control it. And the only question I'd have on it is, it says the board president and one other designated member of the board. Who determines the designated member?
Well,
I guess.
When I was looking at that, Dave, it's my initial thought is that it should be the board president, it's and the chairperson of the personnel committee.
Yeah.
Sure. But I was questioning whether that would be too specific, and certainly something we could adjust, but I'm thinking that either, it's the board president, could select somebody, or maybe the board picks a representative, and maybe we routinely pick the chairperson of the personnel committee because it's related to their assignment.
Yeah, I think that's a fairly open-ended question. So it could be something as simple as a volunteer. Someone's available that time, or someone's more involved with it that year. So it does.
There may be board members who don't want to do that. So.
Right. So it offers some latitude, right?
Okay, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure that we have an idea of how that's going to work.
Yeah.
What I like about the policy is that it does provide, it's some more structure than we had in the old policy. And even more importantly, I think it provides accountability to the board, because it gives us some specific timelines when we should be accomplishing these evaluations. And I think it's only fair to Mark as well, to know, it's with a little more detail, what's going to be involved in his evaluation. It's and the evaluation is not to look at what he's doing wrong, but what he's doing well, and give him opportunities to grow as our superintendent.
So this is mandated to happen annually, right? I mean, it's certainly.
No, it's not mandated. The state doesn't mandate. The state mandates that you do it once every 3 years. It's a strong recommendation that you do it on an annual basis.
Okay.
But our policy, I think our policy, does it suggest that we do it annually?
Yes.
Yeah,
It
but,
sure does.
and this is
That we
pretty
should.
different than our current policy, and that's, that's fine. I think your committee agreed that you needed to come up with a different policy than what we had, addressing the same issue.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and Dave, I would just kind of reiterate that Dick is spot on. What we want to do is to be able to celebrate what we're doing well and really talk about ways that growth could potentially occur, and to really formalize that much more so than a group of us getting together, hashing things out, and then having the board president have to go and do that work. It's really formalizing that somewhat and having a standard to know what am I even being evaluated on, what aspects and things like that. So I guess it provides a lot more transparency, I guess, overall.
Okay, well, if there's no other discussion, then we'll just have this one we can vote on as well. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then the final read of it would come at our next meeting, and then that would then become a policy of ours. Okay, any other business anybody wants to bring up?
Well, we're pretty fast tonight, huh?
Yeah, well.
I mean, really, it was the first couple of meetings. I thought, oh my God, what have I said yes to?
Well, that's one of the reasons why Corey took some of those things out of his presentation, is because, and
I think that's probably right. Yeah.
No, that makes a difference. But Terry, you're observant, if nothing else.
Well, maybe nothing else. Yeah, but
perhaps we should move to adjourn, and then the recording can end.
Yeah.
Right.
Do we have any of our committees meeting? I know that our Equity Advisory Committee is meeting March 24th, maybe, or 25th. 25th, the Thursday, yeah. Do we have anything with Chris is coming up? Good. Anything with Building and Grounds?
Yes, I'll be scheduling a meeting in the next couple of weeks. So Carrie and Lisa, I'll be contacting you as the Buildings and Grounds Committee.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Dave, with the Equity Committee, essentially because you are a committee and there are more than one person there, you meet a quorum, do you not? And should that not be publicized?
No, there's only two of us there. There's only two from the board that are on it. It's an ad hoc committee, so it's citizens, and there's only two school board members on there, so it's not a quorum.
Okay. I guess part of it too is sometime if we would like to attend as board members, then it isn't possible.
Well, possible. You can always attend a meeting.
But then we make a quorum.
If there were four of us in it, it could be a quorum. Yes.
Okay.
You'd have to let Lori know that, or you can let one of us know, Meredith or myself know.
Yeah. And then Lori could just post it.
Yeah, it can be posted. Sure.
Yeah.
It hasn't had to be because it hasn't included more than two board members.
Okay.
And neither Meredith or I are on a committee together. So.
Okay.
That's why.
When did Chris say he was going to call that meeting, Lisa? Or we'll get a notice. I didn't.
In the next 2 weeks.
Oh, in the next 2 weeks. You didn't say a day though. Okay.
No, he gave no date. He'll send you an email with some potential dates, and then you get back to him with what works for you.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Then we have curriculum. Let's see, Pam is here. Is there anything with curriculum coming up?
Yeah.
And Meredith, you're the chair of that, right?
We have a meeting on the 18th. Yeah.
Okay. And then let's see, we have personnel. Joyce. Anything there?
Yeah, I think we're good. We just met last week. But Lisa, certainly let me know if you think we need to get together before the next board meeting. I think we're good, Dave.
Okay, thanks. And then finance, Richard is the chair, and then Angela. We didn't We didn't set anything, I know that.
No, and since we met last week, we certainly can set up a meeting. I'll be in contact to see if we'd like to get one on the calendar.
Yeah, okay, otherwise our next regularly scheduled meeting would be Tuesday, March 23rd at noon. And if there's nothing else, now I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Meredith. There you go.